Tonight, President Donald Trump is advancing his strategy of federalizing local law enforcement, committing to deploying the National Guard in Baltimore.
The president says crime is, quote, out of control in the city, along with several other Democratic-run cities.
Chicago is a hellhole right now. Baltimore is a hellhole right now. I have an obligation to protect this country, and that includes Baltimore. I saw where Governor Moore was asking me to take a walk down the street of Baltimore. Well, Baltimore is a very unsafe place. It's rated number 4 in the city, one of the most unsafe places anywhere in the world.
Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Maxine Stryker. The president says since he first suggested bringing the National Guard to Washington, D.C. on August 7th, the city has been a blueprint for crime prevention, and he wants other cities to follow suit.
And data from D.C. Metropolitan Police shows through the first 25 days of President Trump's plan, overall crime is down by 15% compared to the same period last year. Now, that includes a 42% reduction in violent crime.
Now, when compared to Baltimore over that same time period, D.C. has recorded over 800 fewer crimes. Law enforcement officials in D.C. have also made more arrests despite a lower overall crime total.
But the president's proposal has been met with resistance from state and local leaders in Maryland who say the National Guard's presence isn't the state's best in the state's best interest. Governor Moore argues there are better solutions to fight crime in Maryland, something the president disputed today.
If the President of the United States were to have a serious conversation with me and say, what can we do? I would tell him things like, we need to make sure we're increasing funding for local law enforcement, and we have to invest in our community groups and community organizations.
I would love to have, I would say, Governor Moore call, because I watched him over the weekend trying to explain that Baltimore, what they need is housing. No, they don't need housing. They need to get rid of the criminals. These are hardcore criminals.
Tonight we have team coverage as Keith Daniels and Jeff Abel take the pulse of the people on potentially bringing the National Guard to Baltimore. Gary Collins is also standing by with experts' concerns about the governor's priorities after a recent trip to Europe.
But our team coverage begins with Mackenzie Frost and how this battle between the governor and president could play out in the coming days.
President Donald Trump is signaling federal law enforcement will be coming to Maryland. Experts say this is a result of the ongoing back and forth between the president and Governor Wes Moore, but there are still several questions about how all of this will unfold. The political pressure has been building for weeks, and Tuesday,
I want to thank you all for being here.
President Donald Trump says he's ordering federal law enforcement to Maryland.
We're going to do it anyway. We have the right to do it because I have an obligation to protect this country. And that includes Baltimore.
It comes after Governor Wes Moore told the president not to talk about Baltimore unless he was willing to come to the city and help.
And so I do want to be very clear. If you are not willing to be part of the solution, keep our names out of your mouth.
That sparking a firestorm of heated exchanges between the two leaders.
Baltimore is a horrible, horrible deathbed. It's a deathbed. I know Governor Moore said, oh, he wants to take a walk with me. He meant it in a derogatory tone. I said, no, I'm the president of the United States. Clean up your crime and I'll walk with you.
So if there wants to be a serious conversation about the work that we did collectively together, let me not bury the lead. We were able to do that without having to deploy the National Guard in order to make that happen.
I think it'll be done by the weekend.
Political analyst John Deedy has been warning Governor Moore in the recent weeks to de-escalate the rhetoric with the White House.
It seems like maybe Maryland got a little blindsided by this, that they kind of thought that it wasn't going to happen, but they kept poking the bear.
The seemingly sudden news from the president comes as Governor Moore was spotted soaking up the Italian sun on George Clooney's yacht this weekend at Lake Como during a personal trip for the First Lady's birthday.
He's got to cut that vacation short. You have to be back here tomorrow. Not Thursday, not Friday, tomorrow. His wife may not be happy about it. He's got to be back tomorrow.
Moore has been clear. He does not believe the National Guard is the right tool to fight crime in Baltimore.
I do want federal assistance. I absolutely want federal assistance.
In the form of the National Guard?
No, because the National Guard is not an effective form of federal assistance.
But in Washington, D.C., where the federal surge has been on the ground for nearly a month, violent crime has dropped 42%. D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser is welcoming the federal law enforcement presence, issuing an executive order Tuesday requiring local coordination to the maximum extent allowable.
And I appreciate her opinion. I also think there's a distinction between saying we welcome federal supports and we want to mobilize the National Guard. Because one, I think, actually focuses on performance. The other is performative.
When asked about the crime statistics in D.C. since the federal surge,
The reason I am against it, that specific ask, is because I am data-driven, and I do not believe in utilizing our brave men and women for missions that are political opportunism.
But the data shows that what is happening in D.C. has seen a reduction in crime.
There is no data that shows that having National Guardsmen picking up litter is what is driving down crime.
but Betsy Smith with the National Police Association disagrees.
We all have eyes and we all have logic, and we can see that bringing in additional law enforcement as well as the National Guard to provide the visibility that they did has had an impact on the District of Columbia.
Since the president's latest comments,
I would love to have, I would say, Governor Moore call.
the governor's office says while they try to decipher exactly what the president meant, they are doubling down on the same message. Quote, the use of the National Guard for municipal policing is theatrical and not sustainable.
Trump doesn't care. He does not care. I think the train has left the station. They had chances before to kind of slow this thing down. And even with the good crime numbers in August, that doesn't matter to the Trump administration.
Didi says if the National Guard is sent to Baltimore, he expects them to patrol main tourist and business areas like Federal Hill, Fells Point, and the Inner Harbor. It's just a question of when it will all unfold. Now, Governor Moore says he does want federal resources, especially when it comes to federal funding. I also reached out to the White House to get some clarity on the president's comments and also to learn if there is a timeline for all of these new developments. But so far, we've yet to hear back. In the newsroom, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
I'm Kai Jackson. Thank you for watching. Here's another video to watch. Also, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel.